energy has gone out of the room quite. It's like post 5 p.m. Last session, keeping us from, is it the drinks or the awards next? Both probably. So what an opportune time to talk about something as significant as sustainability, right? I think the parable is quite clear. We're running out of time. And it's actually quite interesting that on a forum on future of skills, we're talking about a topic like sustainability right at the fag end of the day when the energy is out of us. I hope that doesn't become symptomatic of what is our future. But welcome to the panel. I'm looking forward to an exciting conversation here with the august panelists that are here. They come from diverse sectors and can share a perspective about what green upskilling will look like for India as well as different sectors. But I want to take a moment to set the stage first and really emphasize why we are talking about a topic like sustainability in this forum of future of skills. If there's energy in the room, can anybody, can everybody raise their hand if their organization is thinking about sustainability or green skills as a core agenda? That's actually more encouraging than I expected, which is saying something. So I represent AXA Climate. It's an entity of the AXA group, and we focus on enabling organizations in their sustainability transition. And normally we work with stakeholders like chief sustainability officers of organizations. And one of the key partners that they recognize in sustainable transition of their organization is HR leadership. However, in my experience in India as a market, HR leadership is not very conscious and not very proactive about helping their sustainability stakeholders in this journey just yet. So I'm looking forward to the perspective that the panelists have to share today. Maybe we can get started with you, Rohin, if that's okay. So Rohin here is the CLO of KPMG. Rohin, I'd love to understand, as a global consultancy leader, right, with several different practices, how has skilling specifically in the sustainability domain and green skills been a focus for KPMG? What has that journey looked like? And what have been some of the key barriers that you've had to overcome?
Well, firstly, I'm going to accept it's slightly awkward sitting as a bald man in front of a large circle right behind me. So I apologize. It is slightly awkward here also. To your question, see, for us, ESG is not a new thing. As a professional services firm, we are very aware of the problems, the real-world problems which require solutions through ESG. At the same point of time, we are also providing ESG consulting to clients across the world. ESG is a fundamental part of our purpose. We published a fantastic impact plan this year, which is really, while we have been with the ESG agenda for the last 5 years, I think, this was really a crystallization of governance, what have we gone after, what are we looking at going after. So for us, it's not a new thing. So the challenges have been slightly lesser for me. But from a skilling perspective, and we were talking about this earlier, so here is what we have done, and I'm going to make this very quick. We have launched a socialization curriculum for everyone. There is a certain amount of ESG awareness, which, if you saw the raised hands in the room, which is required for everyone. So there is a socialization curriculum which runs across everyone at the bottom of the pyramid. And I think while we were running it, the last count, we had some, I think, 10,000 plus people who have gone through that curriculum. At the same point of time, we have also created stratified learning maps for people whose job requirement is a lot more focused on ESG. These are the people who are really focused on ESG consulting. What helped? I think having internal expertise helped. Having it on our leadership team's agenda helped. Global sponsorship helped. What also helped was we have amazing tie-ups and with a lot of very smart institutes, academia, where we have been working with them to create specialized curriculum for our own leaders. So we have a tie-up with Cambridge, NYU, I think the European School, and that's constantly evolving. So that's been very helpful. Challenge. I think the challenge with ESG is a basic challenge of human psychology, which is immediate gratification versus delayed gratification. For people who are in ESG consulting or whom ESG is really a part of the daily client conversation, it's obvious. But if it is not, then there are so many other pressing things on your mind, on your agenda, that ESG upskilling there has been at times a challenge. But what has also helped us is we have created, so I have a consulting business, an audit and a taxation business largely, right? Creating a customized learning approach for each of these verticals, which talks back to the work they do with the client, or what is the kind of work we're trying to drive, has helped. Creating job aids, which allow people to have better conversations, has helped. For certain types of roles, coaching people on ESG conversations has helped. But to wrap this up, sponsorship. Get the people who drive the agenda on your side is how I would close it. Thank you.
Thanks, Rohan. I think that really resonates also with experiences that we've had. I think finding that sponsorship, and the second aspect also of what Rohan mentioned, finding targeted kind of interventions. What do people in specific roles need to know in order to help in the organization's ESG and sustainability agenda is very critical. I'd move to Pooja next. Pooja here is the CHRO of Teleperformance India, which is a digital business service arm of the French global headquartered organization. Pooja, we were talking earlier about how this has become such an imperative for an organization like yours with global business dependencies. So tell us a little bit more about what has been your experience in the past couple of years, and how has this focus on compliance, green skills, etc., grown for Teleperformance India?
Sure. Hello, everyone. And it's not CHRO, CLO again.
My apologies.
We were just discussing this.
In my defense, I think CLOs should be CHROs of organizations.
We love you for that. Absolutely. So essentially, when we were, see, I'm part of Teleperformance. Teleperformance is a people's industry. And we are a French-listed company. So, and most of our clients are global. So obviously, like any business, for us, the priority is, what our clients are wanting. For us, the push, while the awareness, definitely being a large organization, so many people, and if I have to say, we are almost like 80,000 employees in India itself. So we had to put in an effort, and we started this journey good 4 to 5 years back. What gives a thrust to overall focus is definitely our clients also wanting this. And if you look at it, most of the RFPs that come in, the client proposal, it's not just one question on ESG now. There are pages and pages where you need to, mention how an organization, how we are maintaining our sustainability efforts, what are the programs available, what is the contribution that has been. So that has brought in a lot of trust and a focus across. And I totally agree what you mentioned just now is, the leadership. When you have that sponsorship from across, sponsorship is very crucial. That obviously helps. It's no more a good to have, you want to do good for the environment. No, it's a need to have now. And all the efforts that need to go in, and it's not an easy job, and that's what we were discussing. If we need to go ahead and really, when we audit ourselves, it takes like days and days on that. And I know KPMG is super on auditing everything, but that's the amount of focus detailing it out, the effort that needs to go in on energy, on green, on people, on D&I. All of that is part of it. So that's how what we are focusing on is have dedicated team. It's like any other function. It needs to be a separate function, and it is. For us, that's what has worked well. It's a separate function, and it's not in one region across. Then obviously, like each function works, there are deliverables. And learning is one part of that deliverable. The learning is two ways, like I would say, compared to any other function. How do I become an expert of my own function? and how do I educate all of my employees that what they need to be able to do to contribute towards that function. For that, do we need to tie up with experts? We go ahead and do that. Assuming that you're a champion of it and just researching it would help, no, you need champions. You need to know people who've been working on this for 10, 15 years and work with them. Take the best practices from them. Try and understand what is working. For us, it's even more challenging because our clients are spread across. So you need to be aware what India answer to ESG, what India's requirements are. What is good to have, what is must to have. Then what is European organizations, what is Europe saying about it? It's equally crucial for us. Any certifications available for Europe, US, Australia, we need to get it done over and above what is India. I think that is bringing a lot of focus and continues to be a prime focus.
Thanks, Pooja. I think this focus on really creating champions within the organization is so crucial to sustaining momentum, because how many folks here in the room are working in organizations where there is a chief sustainability officer or a sustainability office that is taking care of this agenda? Okay, a handful. But in other organizations, mostly it would be at a board level probably that there is some consideration. It's not kind of entrenched into different teams, whether it's customer-facing teams or other teams that are thinking about this topic. But the topic of sustainability and green skills specifically is an area where I think there are champions, people who care about this topic in every layer and every function of your organization. If you can really rally people and, enable them to kind of sustain that momentum, that is another major way in which you can create that wave of change that you're trying to drive within an organization. HR people, I think, love to think about everything in terms of change management because everything is ultimately, right? So I think that's one core theme that I really resonate with is how do you create champions within. But to just take off the one other tangent here that Pooja mentioned on business dependencies, right? Ultimately, we are having to do this because if we don't, we're going to lose out on business opportunities. We have global business dependencies. Another reason for wanting to focus on this is that the compliance scene on ESG is evolving quite rapidly. Folks here may have heard about the BRSR reporting requirements that large listed organizations will now have to start report on their ESG performance. And this is extra financial performance. Companies are beginning to write sustainability reports, and they're being rated by rating agencies, just as your financial performance is kind of analyzed, your extra financial performance is also being analyzed. So Vipul here has acted as an advisor in ESG for organizations across different sectors. He's also worked with rating firms. He has that context. So Vipul, I'd love to understand, how do you see the compliance scene on this evolving, and also how much of the pressure on organizations is from a rating perspective, and how does that correlate with the initiative of really undertaking sustainability? That's question number one. I have a bunch of other questions of you that I will come to.
Let's go one by one. Thank you. So I've been, privileged to be part of this journey since a long time. 25 years ago, started in sustainability. Didn't find much opportunity here in India, unfortunately. Moved to US and Europe very quickly and saw the birth, the growth, and the maturity of ESG ecosystem in US and Europe. Sustainability obviously was a term, already there for a long time. ESG was coined itself in 2004 by UNEP FI, actually, a guy we work very closely with, Paul Clements and his team. And I've been in the ESG rating system, as you say, so I've seen it, thousands of companies being rated across various methodologies, across 69, sectors globally. So for a long time, we were waiting for this regulation to come in because it was still voluntary. And as it was voluntary, we had to go and convince institutional investors who are pension funds and asset managers to, can you please look at ESG? And they would look at ESG and they would ask rating agencies to then assess, and then the rating agencies would ask companies to disclose, and it was a very painful cycle. So I think a lot of effort has gone in, and finally we have a regulation coming in. So in Europe, we have green finance kind of program, launch of a slew of regulation with the CSRD leading it, Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, mandatory starting this year. 50,000 companies there need to report on sustainability, and they have to provide limited assurance, which our folks are, I mean, there's a lot of work to deliver there. And then we have in India, the BRSR, as you were talking about, which is 1,000 companies here, the largest listed have to report starting this year and provide reasonable assurance. So it's actually even more demanding for 150 this year and 250 next, and so on, 500 and 1,000. So I think there is so the regulation has been a tipping point, I would say. Is the industry ready? I would say neither here nor in Europe. People are struggling. Coming back to your point about CSOs, so did some research recently, 160 CSOs approximately in India among the 1,000 largest organizations. 840 don't even have CSOs. They are struggling to kind of put this responsibility on somebody, maybe the CHRO or maybe the CFO to kind of try to deliver it. It's a huge challenge. So I think, and there are fines. So it's not like it's voluntary anymore. So people have not, it has not sunk in because as you were saying, there's a whole lot of work going on everywhere. It's about urgency versus importance, as we were hearing from Mr. Khera earlier as well. So I think it has been important for a long time, but now it has become urgent. So that tipping point has already happened. Our company is ready? No. I think a huge amount of work needs to go and starts at the vision level. So there are a lot of opportunities, green jobs, as this panel is about. So there is data. In India, 35 million new jobs will get created by 2047 if we have to meet our net zero 2070 target. And direct jobs and indirect jobs which are required for climate transition to have a just, fair transition, 100 million more need to reskill and upskill for that. Globally, ESG jobs at this moment are about 20 million something. By 2030, in 7 years, they'll be 220 million, 10 times growth in just 7 years. And this is just the basic jobs needed to deliver compliance, reporting, auditing, assurance, etc. We are not talking about transition. Transition jobs could be 5 times that number. The opportunity is huge, and the challenge is urgent because of climate change, but I think we are not ready. And that comes to your original point that we are running out of time. So I will just stop here and maybe bring up other topics later.
Yeah, sure. So I think that's a good lens of looking at the green transition or the sustainable transition. Is one of the levers that is really pushing us or should be pushing us is fear, right? We are falling behind. We are, there's not enough time left. There's compliance pressures. There's actual risks, right? There's potent risks that not undertaking sustainable transition is posing on your business. There's physical risks. There's transition risks, as Vipul here mentioned about if you don't transition or if you do transition, what are some of the changes that will come about and how do you kind of mitigate that? Since we have time on our hand, I'd love to kind of go around the panel once again and understand how do you perceive, especially from an HR stakeholder perspective or a learning stakeholder perspective, how do you see the risks and opportunities within your organization? And since we don't have a representative from the manufacturing perspective here, maybe Vipul, you could fill those shoes. But again, Rohin, if you would like to go first, from a business risks and opportunities standpoint, where does KPMG look at green skills?
So, sorry, if I get your question right.
So I think the question here is, when you look at green transition or sustainable skills, etc., how does KPMG look at what are the risks that we are mitigating through this, with different skills that need to be developed to mitigate our risks, and different skills that are being evolved for identifying new kind of opportunities? How do you look at that spectrum from that perspective? Vipul, if you want to start while Rohin kind of reflects. Yeah.
So I think linking to the earlier conversation, so the risks are significant. I mean, there's a financial cost now if you don't comply. In India, there is also comply or explain, and in Europe also there is comply and explain. Why we are referring Europe also we need to understand, because there are firms here in India that are delivering services to Europe, right, and to US. US also, by the way, we didn't talk about it earlier, the SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission, is also bringing in a regulation, and there's a lot of drama around it, political battle going on in US about that. They don't want it, and some people want it, and so on. So I think you can't stop this huge wave of regulation coming in. It's a comply or explain framework, so you have to do it, or there is fine, or you will delist, or you'll have to pay a heavy fine, so we can't run away from it. The risk is we don't see organizations being ready. Also, what it will take to get them ready, I think we are missing a bit of imagination here. We quickly need to upskill. We quickly need to build capacity, starting at multiple layers of the organization. Obviously, there is board readiness involved. There is the middle management layer that need to be involved, and then there is obviously the delivery teams need to be involved. So there is rapid upskilling required at all the stages. Obviously, different capacities need to be built at different levels. Because you're dealing with new data. What happened with financial data over the last 100 years, it's very mature, everybody understands it, everybody deals with it, whether it is systems, whether it is finance, whether it is operations, whether it is human resources. Everybody knows what data we are dealing with. You have audit, you have assurance, you have reporting, everything is sorted out. Data platforms are there. ESG is going through the same journey that happened in finance 100 years ago. So we need to get to that maturity very quickly. And I think we are not ready, so the risk is we will have fines to pay, or we will struggle in terms of opportunities, lost opportunities, RFPs, we are not able to respond to businesses that we will lose. But other countries or other organizations will gain. And the opportunity side is even more massive, which is if we actually build these skills, all those green jobs that are available you can get, those millions of numbers, you can actually cater to them because other people are going to lose those jobs. In another regulation that is happening in Europe is Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, CBAM. Plastics, cement, steel, et cetera, if you are exporting it from any country to Europe, they're going to add a carbon tax to it. And the government is trying to negotiate out of it. Let's see what happens. But it's a global tax. It's not India specific or Asia specific. It's a global tax. Companies in US are also going to be exposed to it. So I think, are we ready to disclose how much carbon we are measuring? Do we even have a carbon measurement system or an accounting system or somebody who knows how to do it? No. So I think a lot of investment needs to go in. So we need to start thinking about it. Time is ticking out. We have a little bit in the panel, but not so much on this aspect.
I would just like to add, what Vipin just mentioned, the biggest risk and the opportunity for an industry like us is, the risk is not enough capable manpower available who has the expertise and understanding, and that is what we were discussing. And this is equally an opportunity, because there are jobs. Every industry, every organization needs it like right now, not tomorrow. They need it right now. So that's another opportunity that we can look at, that if we can go ahead and create that expertise, start working towards it, sooner than later, it's like right now, that is where both sides, same thing. You need to have the skill set of people to understand, like you were talking about the chief sustainability officer. We are talking about organizations do not even have the basic resources, and it's been given to a person or a function as an added responsibility, just one more over and above your day job. Just look at that. Having a dedicated function and expert, because it's not an easy job. It requires a lot of knowledge, it requires a lot of analytics, it requires a lot of understanding of the information, the data, the policies, the laws, the science of it. So I think that's the biggest opportunity right now that we can see.
Okay, so I think in addition to what was said, I think there are wonderful points. One additional risk if you're not pulling off ESG, not just from a skilling perspective, organizationally, is you are failing the communities you are a part of. I mean, from a branding, positioning, from a genuine perspective of what are you offering to the world you are a part of, you have to pull off an entire focus on ESG, which is, I think maybe I don't see the risk as such because we've been on it for a bit now. I think that's one significant risk. I think the other, it's not a risk, it's an interesting space. ESG is rapidly evolving right now.
Yeah.
We spoke about legislation, we were talking about the political movements which are influencing ESG. it's not static like a lot of other skills. Like a lot of management consulting is, you got your models, you're running them. This is rapidly evolving. So not only are you handling the compliance piece of it and what is very obvious in our dealings, but also keeping a watch on how the world is evolving, how the policies are changing, what are the lobby groups focusing on. All of that is an area which you need to watch out for, and that is always cognitively more challenging. It's very easy to miss the bus on something. I think from an opportunity perspective, I mean, you spoke about it amazingly. ESG is the next wave of where a lot of opportunity is sitting. We believe in KPMG that we have actually pulled together a framework which is able to train our people at scale and is able to create that specialization. But as I said, the specializations are evolving, the learning opportunities are evolving. So we are also constantly reviewing how that works out for us.
Thanks, everyone. I think excellent point here about, the risk factor is not just about financial risk or business risk. It's also about social capital, which is at risk for every organization, right? Not just your brand as a consumer brand or your business brand, but also as an employer brand. And maybe that's another topic that kind of resonates with the audience over here. You have new generations that are entering the workplace. If you do not authentically represent yourself as a brand that is a custodian of all of these topics, then are you really going to be attracting great talent at the end of the day, right? That's also, one other dimension that came to my mind from a social. Sorry, Rohin.
So, it's, for example, what we figured works really well is ESG skilling is fine, but how do you really socialize it? Motion sensor lights. Every time we design a lot of schools for our people. Over the last 2 years, we've been partnering with the ESG team to see, how do we figure out reducing carbon footprint? How do we build a more sustainable school? How do we waste less? I was in Mumbai recently, and in the Mumbai office cafeteria, there is a whiteboard which says, this is how much food we did not waste yesterday. This is what we are aiming for today. So helping people understand ESG not at just a business skill level, I guess, which is my job, but to also understand it at a individual. How does it affect you in your life? I think if you do that makes a profound difference.
Absolutely.
Because learning happens within the context of the world.
Learning is ultimately very personal, right? If you appeal at a very personal level, everything else that you're talking about can kind of fall in.
And organization is your setting ground. There are a lot of things, and we've seen it over a period, years and years now, that an individual might come into an organization with a certain thought process and certain way of understanding things, but when they come in and they see a good practices, they take it back to the society. Simple things like you mentioned, the lights, motion sensor light, the LED lights, usage of plastic bottles, okay? We're trying, and these are not easy, will look very small initiative. You can just eliminate plastic bottles and usage of plastic tomorrow. But how difficult it is to convince and also implement it on the ground. But the good part for an individual is that you're not only making it for your organization, you are actually impacting the society as a whole with these small interventions. Because the employee sees it in office, they go ahead and take it back home because they do understand that this is what it should be. While everybody has it on the back of the mind, what gives them confidence is if it can happen in a large organization like this, it can happen at a small place like mine or a small, society where I live in there. So.
Yeah, thanks. Yes, Vipul.
So just linking to those 2 points, so personal aspect, it's so important. So ESG is a framework, but sustainability is a way of living.
Yeah.
So if we can actually, if you want to get comfortable with it, it's a way of living responsibly, taking care of the planet, taking care of, resources we don't waste, and obviously being fair to people. So I think from that side, and this links to professional growth as well. There is a lot of concern about AI. I think ET did a conference, Sam Altman came in, and the first question was loss of jobs. I think whatever jobs potentially will be lost by AI, ESG or greening or sustainability or whatever you want to call it, is going to create multiple times of those jobs, new jobs, and also reskilling into new skills. So I think there's a massive opportunity which it's not getting into the press. We are not talking about it, but it's already happening, because if you add all those things together, this is bound to happen. And I forgot the next point.
Maybe it'll come to you in a bit. But yeah, I think from a HR, besides skilling as a perspective, I think what Pooja mentioned, from a policy perspective, organizational policy perspective, we at AXA Climate, we implement carbon budgets at a team level, right? That's how we kind of inculcate that habit of really reconsidering what personal actions you're undertaking, whether it be with your business travel, whether it be other kind of general kind of work-life considerations. So, there are small little things that you can do beyond skilling as well from an HR perspective, which could be handy. I'm conscious that we want to reserve some time for Q&As as well, but maybe one last round around the panel. If you wanted to kind of share with the stakeholders over here who might not have begun green transition or a skilling perspective within their organizations, if they've not started that journey in all earnest so far, what are some of the key things that they should bear in mind, some of the key collaborations that they should look to develop in order to get started in that journey? We could start with anyone who wants to go first.
So the point came back. Thank you for the reminder. So there are actually horizontal and there are vertical skills to develop. So ESG is set of 50 themes broadly. So green energy, for example, is one piece. Within that, there is solar, there is wind, there is bioenergy, there is green hydrogen. So I think you can specialize vertically. And obviously, there is DEI, there is carbon accounting, there is waste management, there is water accounting and management, and so on. So there are, you get the idea, right? There are multiple deep verticals that one can specialize in. And there are horizontals as well. So these skills would be needed for HR professionals to know, to be sensitized, to be aware, to deal with. Even finance people need it because you have sustainability-linked loans, you have green bonds, you have sustainable finance as a profession itself, entire career that is coming out. Then you have sustainable IT. How can you have servers which are more energy efficient? But it's not just that, it's about many more things. You have sustainable operations, you have facilities management, green buildings, and so on. So there are horizontal skills and there are vertical deep dive. So there is a plethora of options if you want to build your capabilities personally as well as in the organization. I think there's a tremendous amount of room. So we don't need new, we don't need a complete transformation of the job landscape. Even in the current roles where we are, we can just add skills, start being aware, start being sensitive to this, start reading up, start studying, invest personally, I think would be a great thing to do for ourselves and for the planet overall. And take advantage of whatever resources are available. We've done some work at UNext. I've advised them in building course content and many materials, and AXA Climate doing an amazing
Climate School
work there as well. And so I think internally organizations that are really progressive are already working internally and then externally rolling it out. So I think take advantage.
So just to add on to what Vipin said, I think one thing if we need to do is, like he mentioned, all of these effort, what he mentioned, I'm sure 80% of them are happening in all the organization, but are scattered, are disjointed effort. There is a CSR where you're sustaining the society. There is green effort, which is happening. Most of the new buildings or infrastructure that you have got solar panels. So I think the first step, and I'm cognizant of the time, is that start reading what is ESG. Just have a look at it, what all falls into it, because that would give you a brief idea that what is happening, what is not happening, and where there has to be a conscious effort need to go in. And the second thing is, we all have heard this term, we need to go ahead and dive deep into is carbon footprinting. I think that's a starting point of it. So if nothing, just read about carbon footprinting.
Okay, so I'm not an ESG expert, so my recommendations are of a CLO. So here are a couple of things I recommend. One, get your sponsorship in place. Over the years, I've had a lot of, I've seen that when you go after things which you want to do, you got to make sure that it's sitting with the right sponsors and it's sitting within the strategic outcomes of your organization. If it's not sitting there, then you have a problem. If it's not sitting there, then go speak with the people who can move the agenda and bring that in. Super important. So that's number one. Number two, you need to craft a great story. Because as I said, learning or anything happens within the right context. So work closely with your internal marketing or communications team. A lot of organizations do a terrible job of driving change through communication. I think it's a supremely underutilized skill. Focus on that. At a very technical learning level, here is what I recommend. Drive a basic level of socialization of ESG across your organization. That's level one. Step number two, help people understand how ESG actually impacts their work so that they understand application. Number three, look at deep skilling for people who need deep skills. And it's an emerging area. If you don't have help inside the firm, reach out to us. Or there are many organizations, colleges, universities which provide specialized courses. Get there. Because the one thing which also drives a lot of this ESG learning for people who are specialists is a great certification. So partner with people who know better than you, whose certification counts, so that it excites learners. Thank you.
Thanks, Rohin. Thanks, Vipul. Thanks, Pooja. I think holistic perspective on multiple different dimensions. We have 5 minutes on the clock if we want to open up the floor for Q&As.
We are actually hoping that we run out of time because I love the bell which they have for the session
church
finishing.
bell, yeah. It's a very European church
it's
bell.
Amazing. I mean, never
I
heard
love
that.
it. Let's test it. Let's really push the envelope on time. Is there a mic on the floor? Yes, you are.
Thank you for a very refreshing discussion on sustainability, and to hear that in a LND and HR conclave was actually quite surprising. Sustainability is real, so is greenwashing.
Yes.
How will you prevent greenwashing from creeping into these certifications? Just like you see all the agile certifications, which don't make you agile.
I think that's an excellent question about, I think there's a lot of focus on green suddenly, and brands are kind of jumping into that wagon without sufficient understanding, and they're running a reputation risk on the other side, right? If one reputation risk is you don't do anything, and the other reputation risk is that you jump the wagon and you start communicating about things without really addressing it at the root. Does somebody on the panel want to talk about?
So I'm going to give you a very quick answer, and then I'm assuming you'll pick it up. See, for us, there is no greenwashing. We work for people who expect outcomes.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we work on green skills, we deliver, because not delivering is not an option. And the thing is, on the flip side, our clients hold us up to the same actually higher standard, because the expectation is that, yeah, you know, you keep talking about this, are you doing this or not? And as a learning leader, I have a massive problem with anyone who's got a certification but is not pulling it through. So.
Yeah.
So actually, I started talking about it in 2010. Written articles, they are there on the internet. You can see it on my LinkedIn. I've written a book as well about to get published precisely on greenwashing and how to see it. So I've built a rating model which can distinguish where is greenwashing happening and where it's not happening. It's very interesting to get that as a first question. It's almost like I got an award.
Yeah,
like I got an award today. You know, no need to wait for that later. So I think there are very clear ways to see it. I can simplify the entire book in one line. Just watch if people are walking the talk or not. And whether it is people or whether it is organizations, you know, there's a lot of talk everywhere, especially globally. Everybody aspires to put that sustainability ESG halo on their brand. But I think if you see actual impact on the ground, and you are not going to ask the company for that, you're going to ask their stakeholders. So if you ask the stakeholders and measure it, what is the real impact, you will know the scorecard there. So I think that will be a good test.
Thanks, Vipul, Rohin. I think just to add on to what was already shared, I think one quick flag of telling if you're running the risk of greenwashing is if you're jumping into action without really understanding things first, right? So everybody here on the panel has talked about the importance of really educating, assimilating, building that understanding of what we're talking about at a functional level, and then you kind of start working on projects, right? Whether it's your brand and communication strategy, whether it's your product strategy, whether it's your procurement strategy, et cetera, right? So that would be one way to kind of check for that. Any other questions around
Just
the room?
just one example just came. So one simple example of greenwashing, we can see a lot of glass buildings out here, right?
There we go.
And we heard the bell.
Yay.
So a lot of glass buildings, okay, and then we have net zero target, so that doesn't match. Glass building is like, we have not understood the climate science. Climate science is, it's a glass house, it's a greenhouse, so it's gonna get heated. And then we have climate targets. So we cannot have glass buildings and have climate targets because it's gonna heat up, then you need more air conditioning, you need more energy, and you're gonna use more carbon. So that doesn't go together. So that's one example.
I'm not sure if that's the dance floor or something that's going on over here, but yeah,
People are
maybe
like,
go.
you want to be at that party.
One last
I'm
question.
not sure if this is the room you want to be in anymore, but yes, one last question if that's okay.
Good evening. My name is Commander Aditya Verma. I'm from the Indian Navy. So I am a cybersecurity professional, and so you have a concept of shift left in cybersecurity. You talk about DevSecOps. We are looking at applications. We want to put cybersecurity into it right in the beginning. Now, when we talk about sustainable...
Can you hold the mic slightly closer to your...
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better, thank you.
So the way you have a shift left, when you look at application development, what is the shift left for sustainability? When projects are going on, at least we try to put a professional who is the devil's advocate, who actually questions every story, right, as it is being created. So it's good to educate people, and it's great to have even a chief sustainability officer. We are maybe in a scenario where people are trying to juggle between what is more of a priority right now. Should we secure the business in terms of data and security, or in terms of sustainability? So what would be the shift left as per you? Because sustainability has to begin right from the beginning.
So may I take that?
Sure, if you've
It's
got the question.
very simple, and Vipin, I would like to, anybody can add. For me, it's very simple. It's not a question of either and or. Both of them need to work together. Okay, there is data security. That doesn't mean sustainability takes a backseat. It's about what the shift we've seen in technology, focus on AI, but there is an equal shift on people. And that is what we've seen over the last 2 years. So,
And actually comes back to Shalmali's point about really understanding sustainability, if we don't want to end up greenwashing. Greenwashing can be two types, conscious and unconscious. So this is unconscious greenwashing. Actually, design of software, or cybersecurity is heart of sustainability. If you look at it from an impact point of view, if you don't do that, your customers' data is going to get lost. You're going to lose your customers, right? Your brand takes a hit. It's already at the heart of sustainability. So once we understand that well, there is no conflict anymore.
Okay, I think the church is like really... okay, I don't think we have room for more questions, unfortunately, but if you want to wait around and talk to the panelists, you can do that. On closing note, I just recalled about a year back, I was in a Bangalore conference specifically on this topic of future of skills, and a co-panelist was talking about different technological innovations, etc., that's happening in the future of L&D. And a gentleman in the audience just earnestly stood up at the end of the panel and asked, all of this is well and good about the future of L&D technology, but what is the future of learner motivation in the face of all of this that's happening, right? There's just a deluge of things that are happening. So what is the learner motivation? Where do we know that we've hit capacity and people just don't want to learn anymore? And my co-panelist was, she in a light vein, she said, we've long past breached that threshold, my friend. We've pushed learning and pushed a lot of kind of topics in front of learners, and there is no motivation unless somebody's Personally also, unless somebody is holding my children and grandchildren ransom, I don't want to I don't want to learn anything new anymore. My last point, concluding point is, all jokes aside, if there is something that is holding your children and grandchildren ransom, is the sustainability of the planet, is the sustainability of our business, society, everything. So do think about it from that perspective, that sustainability is not just a fad, it's not an agenda, it's very core to the topic of future skills. It is our future. So we have to consider it from that gravitas. Thank you. Great panel over here. Really enjoyed our conversation.